Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey there, friend. Welcome to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Today we're looking at Psalm 91 verses 14 through 16. So since this is the end of this particular psalm, I think it's fitting for us to just do a little review. So I called this the Deliverance Song. We have the psalmist, who is unknown because we don't have an introduction here. So we have the psalmist saying, there in the keynote of the psalm, in verses 1 and 2, he gives the general statement about he that dwells, whoever that he might be. And then he personalizes it and says, I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge, fortress, my God. In him I will I trust. And then he turns his attention to the audience, to the reader. And he begins to speak to the reader, encouraging the faith of the reader. And that starts in verse 3 and goes all the way through verse 13. Now, today's section, 14 through 16, we have the Lord's voice. So the Lord comes in here, and he's going to add his piece. So making the surely there in verse 3, sure. He really pins it down here because the Lord adds his voice. This is no longer the psalmist speaking. This is the Lord speaking. Again, this is one of those most beloved psalms. It just really is. It has been a part of the ancient Christian hymnal and is still something today that is well loved and known. People, of course, know this verse. Maybe they just have this psalm, maybe they just have an acquaintance with it because of what happened in the temptation of Christ there in Matthew chapter 4 and in Luke chapter 4. We find the temptation of Christ and the devil himself quotes 11 and 12, verses 11 and 12. So maybe that's just the only familiarity, but most of us look to this psalm to give us some comfort, especially during difficult times. We want to remember that yes, the Lord is with us. His very presence is promised. Well, I'm going to get ahead of myself. So let me read verses 14 through 16. Because he hath set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him, and show him my salvation. So there's several promises here. Number one, the promise of deliverance. If you call on the Lord and set your love upon him, he will deliver you. That is the great promise of salvation, which he begins with here in 14 and ends with in 16. I will deliver him. I will show him my salvation there with in 16. So the promise of salvation for those who call upon the Lord is real. Now, notice what he says. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. So this is the promise for the believer. If you're a believer, you have a promise that God is going to answer you when you call. So I guess the question is, have you called yet? He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. Here's the promise of presence. God is going to be with us. When? In trouble. Well, he's with us all the time, but I think we feel it acutely when we're having troubled times. Because that's when we really want the Lord to hold our hands, isn't it? We want him to hold our hands the whole time, but sometimes in our arrogance and in our pride, we say, I got this. I got this handled. But then we get into trouble. We're like, I don't have this anymore. And we come back to the Lord. So sometimes when we're in trouble, that's the catalyst for us to really focus in on his presence with us. In trouble, he delivers and honors, right? With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. So we begin with salvation, which is salvation from sin and, the rebellion of the human heart. And we end with salvation because it's after long life, being satisfied with long life. What's next? The salvation of the Lord. We go from this life to his life, and we're in his presence. So this is just wonderful. So many little promises in here. I'm sure as you read through here, you might tease out more. I hope you will. And join me next time, and we'll look at Psalm 92 here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.